Otis, you are muted, sir.
Oop, oop. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Good morning, everyone. As Jennifer mentioned, my name is Otis Reed Jr., and I am an education associate with the Office of Emergency Programs here at the South Carolina Department of Education. And I'm here today to speak with you about our ESSER monitoring program, our ESSER monitoring process that we are now conducting throughout the state of South Carolina through our office. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for joining me, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. And bear with me 1 second. Jennifer, okay, Jennifer, just to be sure, is my camera okay? Because I, for some reason, can't see it on my end, but I can see my slides.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, thank you so much. Here on this slide is a summary of the uniform guidance that requires the South Carolina Department of Education and all grantees to monitor subrecipients. Our subrecipients are our school districts and our LEAs who all received ESSER funds. It is our job to um, monitor our LEAs fiscally, and it's also our job to monitor you programmatically. And what I'm going to be speaking about today is the program monitoring piece that we are conducting at this time. So we are looking at, and everything I'm going to be discussing with you is all about the programs, not necessarily fiscal monitoring and not necessarily the spending, but the programs. We're looking at the ESSER programs that are taking place throughout our state, in our LEAs and in our school districts. So keep in mind that everything I'm mentioning is all about program monitoring. And this is an outline of the program monitoring process as we know it through the Office of Emergency Programs. We're presently in phase one of that process called the self-assessment. As you see here, the self-assessment was distributed throughout the state on September 8th, and there's a deadline. It's due back by tomorrow to be completed by our LEAs. So we are very excited and very anxious about the self-assessment and all that it will tell us about ESSER programs throughout our state. So, and many of our LEAs, many of our districts have already submitted it before the deadline. So we thank you for doing that. And we're also looking forward to getting the rest of them by tomorrow. So again, phase one is the self-assessment. Phase two is the desk audit. Once we get all self-assessments in and we do our own assessment of the information that you give us, then we will decide who will maneuver forward or who will move forward to the desk audit. And more information will be given out about that shortly. But as you see here, only selected districts will participate in the desk audit, and those districts and those LEAs will be contacted by us. After the desk audit will be the field monitoring, and that's where we will visit our LEAs, visit our districts to see all the great things that are going on throughout the state so that we can conduct a firsthand review of what we see going on in our schools and in our districts. And then we will get to the plan of corrective action. There may be some places where they might need an extra push or an extra nudge, and we will require them to do a corrective action plan. But as you can see, that's further down the line. So we hope to have all of this program monitoring, all these activities done by the end of the fiscal year. And, and so again, the self-assessment. The self-assessment was handed out September 8th, and it is due back to us by September 28th. And the self-assessment is it is to be completed as of June 30th of 2022. So we know that there are some districts that have consolidated beginning July 1, but we are asking all LEAs that were in existence in June, at the end of June, June 30th, to complete a self-assessment for those districts that were in existence. Here are a few general guidelines for completing the self-assessment. First of all, for those of you who've already seen the self-assessment, we are using rubrics to help assess what we see or what's going on in our districts. Actually, we give you an opportunity. We give our LEAs and our districts an opportunity to assess themselves. That's why it's called a self-assessment. You're able to assess yourself to let us know where you see yourself in the whole ESSER process. You get to inform us where you are. And we ask that you be very honest and very transparent in your feedback to us because we want to know truthfully where you are. We ask that you don't overrate yourselves. We ask that you do not underrate yourself. We want you to give yourself an honest and a very transparent assessment so that when we come to visit your schools, we'll actually see the information that you gave us in action. That's exactly what we want to see. So we ask again that your answers be given to us in very specific details. We're not asking you to um, write very lengthy narratives in places where narratives are necessary, but we do ask that you give us the details that we need so that we can adequately assess where your district is or where the LEA is at this time in the process. If the answers are not sufficient, then we will be contacting you, contacting the districts to get further details, and it could cause you to have to progress to advanced stages of the monitoring process. And your responses will be reviewed for accuracy based on the approved plans that you have, your approved ARP ESSER plans. We will be comparing what you give us now to what you have given us as a part of your plan. And we do ask that your answers to the self-assessment be aligned to any amendments that were done prior to June 30th, 2022. And last but not least, all your ratings will be added to page 29 of the self-assessment, which is called the self-assessment overview. And if you enter your answers in the correct spots throughout the self-assessment, those numeric ratings will be automatically added to the assessment overview on page 29. And please don't forget to enter any questions in the chat. The chat is being monitored by members of our team, and we'll be happy to answer any of those questions. And now we get into the sections and the components of the self-assessment. The first part is the high-level approved budget. And we just ask that you give us your budget back to us on this page. You tell us what money has been allocated to the different portions of your ARP ESSER plan. And also remember to reflect again any amendments that were done prior to June 30th, 2022 when you complete the budget. And the next section of the self-assessment is activities to address learning loss. In the previous presentation, you heard about the importance of addressing learning loss and how money was set aside in your plans to address learning loss. You were asked to address learning loss as it relates to English language arts, as it relates to mathematics, as it relates to social emotional learning and mental health, and also other activities. So you were able to write all of that into your approved ARP ESSER plan. If you look on the left-hand side of the slide, that is the rubric that will be used to assess this portion of your plan. So if you look at the rubric, it pretty much tells you the types of answers and the types of responses that we are looking for. If you look under the number 2, you will be given a number 2, or you will assign yourself a level 2 if you provided a detailed response which identifies sufficient evidence-based strategies that you use to address learning loss. And then also, if you provided a detailed response which illustrates specific processes that you use to measure the effectiveness and success of the planned activities, then you can receive a 2 for each portion of this section of the self-assessment. So if you just answer those questions very completely and very specifically, give us the details that we need to provide you with the level 2, or the score of a 2, then you will be successful with the self-assessment. And don't be alarmed if you score a 1 or something else on any section of the self-assessment. We know, because of the nature of ESSER programs, that not all programs are actually complete at this time, and some of them may not have been implemented. And I want to take a minute to talk about completion versus implementation. The self-assessment is measuring your implementation of your programs. We're not looking for everything to be complete, and you're not being scored based on the completion of your programs, but we're looking at the implementation. And some may ask, well, what do you mean by implementation? If you started the process, if you have begun the process of planning your programs, implementing the programs, and assessing your programs, then you're implementing according to our standards on the self-assessment. You are implementing those programs. So
Otis,
yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you, and I'm so sorry.
Oh,
But
yes,
as
ma'am.
you're going through these, I appreciate that you have the different charts for how the self-assessment looks. However, in the current presentation mode that you're using, it is kind of difficult to read. So if you
Okay.
could stop sharing and then restart again, just hit share, find your PowerPoint, and then go from there, we might be able to
Okay.
read it a little better.
Okay, I apologize. Thank you for so much for stopping me to tell me that.
It was fun at the beginning, but now that we're trying to read the little questions, it's harder to see. So I thought you might want to change that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, I do apologize for that technical difficulty. Thank you once again, Jennifer, for sharing that with me and for getting me on track. So I hope you all can see the slides a lot better now. Right now, we're talking about the activities to address learning loss. This is the first portion of the self-assessment that is actually scored. As you all know, funds were set aside to address learning loss in your ARP ESSER plans. So we want to hear from you about what you're doing to address learning loss within your LEAs and within your districts. As I stated earlier, when addressing learning loss, you were able to write in plans for addressing learning loss in ELA, also for mathematics, also for mental health and social and emotional learning, and any other activities that you felt necessary to address learning loss with. So you see the rubric on the left-hand side of the screen. This is what you will use to assess yourselves. And when I say you, I'm talking about the LEAs and the school districts within the state of South Carolina. These rubrics, or this particular rubric, will be used to assess how our districts and LEAs are addressing learning loss in ELA, math, social emotional learning, mental health, and other activities. So in order to get a level two, as I stated earlier, you see it, hopefully you see it better on the screen now. If you provide a detailed response, which identifies sufficient evidence-based strategies for addressing learning loss in ELA or any of the other subject areas, and if you provide a detailed response that tells us how you're going to measure your success and your effectiveness, then you will be awarded a two for your learning loss in this area. When you look on the right hand side of the screen, you see the questions that you're being asked, which reflect what I just said in the rubric. When you write your narratives, it can be written in paragraph form, and you may also use bulleted lists or numbered lists to give your response to those questions. Either is satisfactory for us. What we're looking for, though, are the details. We're looking for you to sufficiently explain to us what you're doing to address learning loss in those subject areas and how you're measuring the effectiveness of your programs as you address learning loss. Okay, and the next portion of the self-assessment deals with the other ARP ESSER funds, activities for other ARP ESSER funds. And this is where we get into the 15 allowable categories that was mentioned earlier in the previous presentation, which was very informative. I know you got a lot out of that. But you have 15 allowable categories, and we're going to look at one as an example in a minute that you were able to um, write into your plans. On the left-hand side of the slide, you see the instructions for answering the questions as it relates to the 15 allowable categories in your ARP ESSER plan. On the right-hand side of the screen, you see the rubric that you will use, that our districts will use to rate themselves in their use of funds for activities of ESSER funds, excuse me, other ESSER programs. And this rubric is a little different. So we do advise our districts to pay close attention to the directions, pay close attention to the rubrics, because on two parts of the self-assessment, there is a 2-point rubric that you will use to assess yourselves. And on this part of the of self-assessment, this rubric is a 5-point rubric. So we do advise our districts to don't just think that all all rubrics apply to every section. This is a different rubric than what we just saw earlier. And as you can see, you can rate yourself up to a 5, and you will receive a 5 if you have, first of all, if you allocated funds for the allowable activity, and if you have implemented 100% of the planned activities that you have written for that allowable category. So we'll look at an example of that in just a minute. This is an example of one of the allowable categories, improving indoor air quality. And as you can see on the left side of the slide, these are the questions that we are asking you to answer for us. The first question asks, did the LEA allocate funds for improving indoor air quality? That's simply a yes or no question. If you answered no for that question, for that allowable category, then you will skip all the other questions for that particular allowable category if your answer is no, because the rest of the questions under that allowable category to you. However, if you answered yes, then you will proceed to answer all of the questions under that allowable category. First question is the LEA evaluating the progress made toward achieving the outcomes and objectives set for indoor air quality? And we hope that you are. We hope that you are assessing the progress that you are making toward addressing that allowable category. So you simply check yes or no, and regardless to whatever your answer is, we're asking you to explain to us what are you using to assess yourself, and if you're not, tell us why you're not assessing yourself in that area. And then we're asking you to tell us how many planned activities that you have actually implemented up until June 30th, 2022, out of the total number of planned activities. And you will come up with a percentage which will be used as your rate of implementation. So if you only had one planned activity in that category and you have implemented that one activity thus far, then your level of implementation, excuse me, your rate of implementation is 100%. And if you look back at the rubric that we just discussed, if your rate of implementation is 100%, then your level of implementation, which is the rubric score, would be a level 5. It will be a level 5. And then we ask that you explain your rating. If your rating, go back to the current slide, if your rating is ranges from 0 to 4, we're asking you to explain your rating to us and tell us any plans you have for achieving the level 5 by the completion deadline. Now, as we heard earlier, all of these activities are due to be complete by September 2024. However, you may have planned to have some of these activities completed before September 2024. So when we ask for your projected completion date, we ask that you give us the date that you expect to be finished with implementing the activities in that category. It cannot be after September 2024. However, it could be prior to that date. So whatever that date is, we ask that you enter it on that line. And then on the right hand side of the slide, there is a very important question that is asked 3 times throughout the self-assessment. The question is, are you in need of technical assistance for anything that's mentioned in this section of the self-assessment? I stress every time I talk to our LEAs or to our districts, I stress that if technical assistance is needed, please do not hesitate to ask. We're here to help you. We're here to do whatever we need to do to help you be successful. Because if you are successful as an LEA, if you're successful as a district, then we're successful as a state. And that's what we want. We want success. So if you need technical assistance, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Please let us know that you need, please, yes, let us know if you need technical assistance because we do want to provide that assistance for you. So please don't hesitate. Don't be bashful. Don't think that you're going to be docked for asking for help. We want to help you. And as you'll see on the overview, the questions about technical assistance are not scored. They're not scored. So you're not going to receive points for asking for help. You're not going to not receive points for asking for help, and vice versa. So if you ask for help, we're here to help you. We want to do that. And now I want to give an example of what it's like to score. I kind of gave one already, but let me give another one. This is, and it's probably very small on your end when you look at the narrative on the left-hand side of the slide. I apologize for that. It's small on my side as well, but that's an actual narrative that was submitted to us from an LEA telling us what they're going to do to address indoor air quality. It's very short, very very straight to the point, which is good. That's what we want. However, you take the space that you need. There's unlimited space to give us any explanation that you feel we need to have in order to give you an adequate assessment of your LEA. So when we look at the narrative, this LEA talked about three things that they wanted to do to improve indoor air quality in their schools. Number one, they wanted to purchase and install air filters. And number two, based on my reading of the narrative, they want to purchase and install air purifiers. And then they want to make improvements to their air ventilation systems. So I counted three planned activities for that allowable category, three of them. And so that's the answer to the first question. How many planned activities are there? There are three. And then next, we want to know how many of the planned activities have already been implemented? How many of them have begun? How many of them have they started to plan and implement in their district? And just for the sake of this example, I placed the number two there. Let's say that they purchased and installed air filters, or they've submitted their order. Let's say it like that. They submitted their order for air filters. However, they may not have done anything with the air purifiers, but they've already started the process of improving their air ventilation systems. So that's two out of three planned activities being implemented at this time. So when we do the calculations, two out of three gives us a percentage of 67%. So when we go back, let's look at the rubric again. When we look at 67%, we're at a 67% rate of implementation. So when we look at the rubric, we see that a 67% falls under a level three. So your level of implementation would be a three, and you will place that three in the appropriate space on the self-assessment. And you see all that there on that slide. So that's simple. This is a very simple example. Some of your narratives and some of your plans are way more extensive than this, but this is just a brief example to show you how you will calculate your rate and your level of implementation. And the next part of the self-assessment is where you give us some information about your LEA or about your district. We're back to a 2-point rubric here. So again, the rubrics are different for each section. So on this section, you can only get up to 2 points per question. And as you see, there are 9 questions. However, only 8 of those questions are scored. And why is that? Why are only 8 of them scored? When you look at question number 9, there's that important question again that I mentioned earlier. Do you need technical assistance? We're not scoring you based on your answer to that question. We simply want you to give us some transparency throughout the self-assessment, but especially on the technical assistance question. Please let us know if you need help. Our staff, our Office of Emergency Program staff is very capable, very excited about our roles in making sure that ESSER is implemented correctly through our state. So we're here, we're ready to help you. But again, those 1 through 8 questions, and I do want to stress, based on some of the responses I've seen so far, this section is very simple, very cut and dry. The answers we're simply looking for a yes or no answer, except for about half of the questions. You give us a yes or no, and based on your answer, we may be looking for a brief explanation. So if you look at questions 1, 2, 7, and 8, Those are the questions that ask for an explanation. So if it applies to you, like if you look at question number one, does the LEA have a strategy to ensure sustainability of ESSER funded activities? If yes, summarize the strategy for sustainability. So if you answered no to that question, no is a satisfactory answer. So if you said no, then that's all we are asking you to tell us. However, if you answered yes, then we're asking you to summarize the strategy for sustainability. If you look at the rubric on the left-hand side of the screen, if you look at a number two, it says the LEA provided a correct yes or no response and provided a detailed supportive explanation where applicable, which means that you only give an explanation where an explanation is required. And the only questions that require an explanation are questions 1, 2, 7, and 8, depending upon your yes or no answer. However, the other questions, 3, 4, 5, 6, simple yes or no. That's all we need from you. Please write your score in the appropriate section on these questions, because if you write them in the right spot, and it's not showing on this screen, but there's a line when you look at your self-assessment, there is a line that says write your level of implementation there. If you write it in the correct spot, it'll automatically show up on page 29, which is the self-assessment overview, which is the next slide. We can go on to that. If you write your numeric levels of implementation in the correct space throughout the self-assessment, your numeric responses will automatically fill on this page. So we tried to simplify the process a little bit for you so that you to eliminate you redoing work that you've already done. So if you write your answers, your numeric answers, your level of implementation in the correct spots, in the correct space, then those answers will automatically fill on the self-assessment overview, which is page 29 of um, your self-assessment. And we just ask that you list. This does not show the entire self-assessment overview, but this is a piece of it, and it shows you an example of what it looks like. Again, that's page 29 of the self-assessment. And once you do all of that, once you have given yourself an adequate self-assessment of your ESSER programs, we ask two important questions of you that helps us to do a sufficient review of your district or of your LEA. And this is simply asking for your strengths or weaknesses. What is working well for your district, and what do you think you could improve upon? So we're asking you to give us specific details about those topics within the space that's provided. Tell us what's working well. Tell us what you're strong in. Tell us the exciting and great things that are going on in your district. But then tell us, what you might need some help with. Tell us some things that are not going so well, so that when we do come, we want to see actually what's going on in your LEA, and we want to provide assistance wherever necessary. We want your ratings, we want your self-assessment to be very transparent, very honest for us, so that whenever we come to see you, if you are a district that's selected for the field visit, then we want to see what's going on in your schools. We know that you're doing great work. We know there's a lot of great things going on, and we want to see them. We want to witness them for ourselves. We want to be able to give you and your district, your LEA, the most adequate, the most productive self-assessment scores as possible. Because once we look at the self-assessment, we will know as a state how to proceed to make sure that we all stay in compliance with the federal government. When we're in compliance, you're in compliance, and vice versa. When you're in compliance, we're in compliance, and we're here to assist and help each other. So please answer these questions, as all of them, in a very transparent manner. Tell us what's working, tell us what's not working. And we are pretty much at the end of my talk. Um, I wanted to allow time for questions. So if you have any questions, now is a good time to ask them. And also, um, not for, let's not forget that we have the email address scesser@ed.sc.gov. Anytime there's a question or concern, please feel free to send us an email and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So at this time, are there any questions, anything I may need to clarify that I mentioned earlier? Now is a good time to ask those questions.
Otis, a couple were posted in the chat.
Yes, ma'am.
If you could address those, that would be helpful. Susan said, we're able to give it a level 5 if we have started the activity in any way, even if it is not completed, correct?
That is correct. If you have started the activity, if it's that, then we consider that to be in the implementation process. So yes, that could be one that you use as an implemented activity.
So if it is a level 5, they do not need to give any explanation?
Right. In the allowable categories in the second section of the self-assessment, if you scored a 5, you don't have to give an explanation at the bottom of that page. Right. But if it's a 0 through 4, we do ask for an explanation.
Okay, a couple more. Chastity asked, with the scores being automatically tabulated at the end of the assessment, it seems the LEA overall score would be impacted if a category isn't applicable to your plan and the LEA is automatically assigned 0 points. Is this correct?
Good question. Thank you for asking that one. If I understood you correctly, I'm glad you brought that up. Um, and Jennifer, if you could read the question one more time for me.
Of course. With the scores being automatically tabulated at the end of the assessment, it seems the LEA overall score would be impacted if a category isn't applicable to your plan and the LEA is automatically assigned 0 points.
Okay, I'm not too sure that you would automatically be assigned 0. However, if you want to, just to be on the safe side, if you want to put an NA, N/A on that line for your level of implementation for those categories that do not apply to you, that is okay. And yes, it does affect the summation of your scores. However, if there's a category that does not apply to you, it does not count against you. We have a rubric on our end where we put all of this information in, pretty much a database where we put all of your information in. And when there's a category that does not apply to you, it does not count against you. So that's the beauty of the self-assessment, is really customized to every individual LEA, because all categories do not apply to every LEA. So if it does not apply to you, then those scores don't count against you. We will calculate your scores based on the categories that apply to you. And if I didn't explain correctly, please continue to ask so I can clarify. But again, those categories that don't apply to you, if it was not written into your approved ARP ESSER plan, then it does not apply to you and it does not count against you. Does not count against you. So for instance, in that section of the self-assessment, there are 12 allowable categories. There are 12 allowable categories, and you can score up to 5 points for all 12 categories. So 5 times 12 is 60, which means that there's a possible 60 points. However, if 3 of those categories don't apply to your LEA, so now you're down to 9 categories that apply to you. 9 times 5 is 45. So your LEA can only reach up to 45 points for that portion of the self-assessment. And that is perfectly fine, because when we calculate it on our end, we're going to do percentages based on what you've implemented and based on the number of points that apply to your district. So thank you for asking that question. That's a very important point to bring out.
Yes, and just to continue on what you were saying, you did explain that well, I believe. But I had a district call and say, well, we did this and we scored a 51. Is that bad? And I said, no, that's not bad, because if you didn't use every single category, then you're not going to get points for those. It won't be counted against you, like you said. So I understand that the number can seem concerning, but that is not something we'll be looking at as far as
Right.
like comparing it to others and what that should be. Like, you do
Right.
what is best for you. Please, like you said, be as transparent as possible.
Right. If you're in communication with another district and they might tell you, well, we have a total of 60 points, but then you're looking at your self-assessment and you only have, say, 40 points. Well, those your plans are different. So your self-assessment is going to be different. And because your self-assessment is going to be different, the scores that you achieve are going to be different. So we only want you to worry about those components that apply to you, your district, what's best for your students, what's best for your staff, and what was approved in your ARP ESSER plan. So once again, thank you for that question.
All right. And I think I only have one more question. This one came through a different form rather than the chat, but there are some districts asking if there will be an extension on the self-evaluation.
Well, at this point, an extension has not been granted. Tomorrow is the deadline. Um, However, we ask that you get them in as quickly as possible. And I can't speak on any extension at this moment. That none has been given throughout our office. So at this point, the deadline is September 28th. So we hope to get your self-assessment by then.
Okay. All right. I believe that is all of the questions that we have regarding the self-assessment and monitoring. Um, I believe Emily was going to post the link for um, today for the feedback form. She said she would post it and then post it again after our next speaker. However, we are going to take our 15-minute break. We are a little ahead of schedule, which is perfectly fine. That means we all get to have lunch at the end of this a little earlier, so that's nice. Oh, one just came in. Is there a way to verify receipt of our self-assessment?
Once you email it to us at the SCESSER at ed.sc.gov, if you would like for us to verify that we've received it, if you want to just type that into the message area, and we will respond to let you know that we have received it. So once again, um, thank you all for your attention. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for giving us an opportunity as an Office of Emergency Programs to have a glimpse of what's going on within your districts. And we know it will all be good. And we know that lots of exciting things are going on, and you all are doing a great job across the state. And we just look forward to witnessing all of it. So again, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Otis. That was awesome. Very informative. We appreciate it. Um, so like I was starting to mention earlier, we are going to take a 15-minute break, a little ahead of schedule. So instead of it being from 11 to 11:15, we'll go ahead and take our break from 10:45 until 11. And then we will be hearing from Dr. David Mathis. So go ahead, take this time, go refill your coffee, go to the bathroom, do whatever you need to do. We will see you back here at 11.
Right. Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.